Alright guys, sorry for taking such a long break. You know, now that I'm a famous YouTuber with a total of 628 views, that life is just too beneath me now. Like, why would I spend time editing when I'm living up the dream in my mansion on Fraser Island? So, during my time spent walking around the endless halls of my $1 million mansion, I tend to reflect back on my roots, on what made me who I am today. The first video I'd ever started working on. And, what? What the fuck? One dislike? One dislike? Well, to celebrate the first dislike on the channel, I've decided to talk about the new Last of Us Remastered. Because when I was writing the script for my last video, and after realizing I found out most other creators had copied my content years ago, so I decided to get ahead of the game and... Oh. Donkey uploaded. Alright, fuck it, let's just get into it. You may have beaten Bowser's Big Bean Burrito Donkey, but now it's time for a real reviewer to talk about this game. So here's the big question. Did replaying The Last of Us Remastered change my mind? No. No, it did not. I like how some people online, mainly from Twitter, thought that this remaster would be the final nail in the coffin for The Last of Us 2. But like, this game didn't even really need to be remastered in the first place. I mean, yeah, the original remaster on the PS4 already looked pretty good even for now. And I know most people who watched my last video didn't think I hated the first Last of Us, because I don't. But when I've had this conversation with other people and friends in real life, a lot of them think that I hate this game. But I don't. I think the second one just has so much more improvements compared to the first. That goes for gameplay, how smoothly you're able to move through environments, the story, and the horror and puzzles. To be fair, the first game only has one type of puzzle in between action parts, and it's just finding a little thing for Ellie to stand on because she can't swim. And no, I'm not counting ladders and wooden planks as puzzles, since the game pretty much tells you where to fucking put those. And yeah, I'd say the second game has a lot less puzzles of this caliber, but I think it helps with the pacing a lot when it's not contrasted with these slow scenes after just murdering a whole community of people. Also, I know my section in the last video talking about Joel wasn't as foolproof as I would have liked, so here's a little extra. Whatever you like to say about Joel, you cannot condone some of his actions in the first game. Yeah, he puts his morality under the guise of survival, but literally condemning the entire world to die is not something that can be taken lightly. But we as the player see his actions as understandable because he had already lost so much and he can't lose another daughter. Which is a fair reason, and although his actions were horrible, it makes them somewhat redeemable. What I don't understand is that when a character we get introduced to in the second game does something just as horrible as he would do, such as being saved by a person only to find out he's the one that you want dead and then killing him anyway. I don't know if this sounds exactly like something Joel would do. Alright, so hear me out. Say for example, the people who killed Tess are still alive, and Joel, from the first game, decides to travel all the way back to Boston to get his revenge on them. On the way back, Joel runs into a massive horde of infected, and it looks like he's about to die until a stranger saves him, and he guides him back to safety. Joel finds out who this person is, and now they're in a room together on their own. What do you think he is going to do to this person? The clear difference from the first game and the second game is that Joel seems to be a completely different person. The once rugged and sour individual is now caring, kind, and lighthearted due to his relationship with Ellie. It's not bad writing, it's realistic writing. And these games are nothing but realistic. Donkey mentioned this in his video, but the dialogue in these games is much better than any out there. The way each character talks to each other is astounding and realistic. Not just these boring static shots of camera A, camera B bullshit with these lifeless models with little to no emotion to them at all. We see how Joel's character responds to scenes and conversations. Ellie's characteristics are much more apparent now to the new facial modeling. Everything about this game speaks on the same level as The Last of Us 2. In the second game, after Ellie comes home after her genocide in Seattle, you can read her journal where she refuses to talk about her trauma with Dina, and the death of Joel lingering over her like this shadow that doesn't want to go away. In a way, she's just exactly like Joel. Every time Ellie wants to talk to Joel about Tess or his daughter, he shuts it down, refusing to even bring up the slightest hint of sympathy towards him, and Ellie does the exact same but goes even further by going back to find Abby. See, the thing is that Ellie takes on almost all the same personas as Joel from the first game. She's so determined and arrogant to her revenge, she refuses to see the bigger picture. If she had just gone with Jesse, she probably would have reunited with Tommy and probably wouldn't have killed Mel and Owen. If they hadn't split up, they might have been able to save Joel. If she didn't leave home to go get closure, Abby would have died just as brutally as Joel did. It's Ellie's endless hate and need for closure that ends up giving her the most amount of pain, severing her last connection with Joel. It's the decisions that our characters make that bring the most agony. Ellie tells Tommy that Joel would be halfway to Seattle if it were any of them, but Ellie and Tommy aren't like Joel. We all know that. Tommy left Joel for that exact same reason. The story of these games is to convene emotion from these characters, to really show the realistic nature of how these people act in these horrible situations. It's not often you see games actually try and get emotion out of you. Only top games like Red Dead Redemption 2 or God of War in recent years have been able to convey such a strong emotion from me. The Last of Us 2 is not good because it subverts your expectations. It's good because it gives what's expected but is still able to surprise you. Now, aside from all this, it's not to say that the game doesn't have criticisms. So here's how I, the one and only game reviewer, would rewrite The Last of Us 2. Now, we all know the beginning with Abby isn't the best out there. In my last video, I gave it praise because I thought it was good for conveying to the audience what type of character Abby was going to be. But what about showing the player who Abby could have been and that struggle between her lust for revenge and doing the right thing? And yet again, how about we actually get some gameplay at the start between Ellie and Joel, like the flashback sequences, but in the present time? It would have added even more impact to the death of Joel and threshed out Ellie and Abby's storyline even further. Or how about this? Ellie doesn't find out the truth with the Fireflies until just before Joel's death. Imagine how impactful that would have been in the entire story. So smack about 5 to 7 more hours onto the 30-hour runtime of this game, and I give you how I would have written the opening hours of this game. Also, by the way, I don't want to imply that I could write or develop games better than people whose job it is to do so. I just like to think that myself and most people would like to see the themes I'm about to say shown in the game. I still think The Last of Us 2 is a phenomenal game, and props to everyone who worked on it. Okay, so actually get us to know and like the group from Seattle. Yeah, this is kind of obvious, and I'm not going to argue against it, but most of the characters related to Abby are super cut and dry. There are a few gold ones like Owen and Manny, but they're still not very fleshed out. I kinda like Jordan's character, but he's gone before I could even get to know him. I think if we get a couple opening scenes of this group actually traveling to Jackson, interacting with each other and making us like or hate them, it would have been great characterization for us to sympathize or hate these characters. It would have been really cool to see this group travel down south into the winter determined to get to Jackson for some reason we don't know yet. Have more dynamics within this large group of people. Maybe some of them hate each other, we don't know. Apparently they don't like Danny, but who the fuck is Danny?
He's out on rotation with Danny. Danny? Yikes. Sucks for him. Yeah.
Holy shit. It's Danny.
You want to run that by me again?
Show us more intercut relationships between Abby and Owen and Mel. It would make the eventual fight a lot more impactful if it was built up a bit more. The main problem with Abby's side of the story is that we get introduced to all these new characters and then they get killed off before we get to know anything about them. From Abby's point of view, a lot of these people seem genuine and just trying to survive like everyone else.
Keep him safe.
For you, I will.
But from Ellie's point of view, they're like this.
Please don't. Joel, please get up.
Yeah, that little bitch got what he deserved.
Have this air of mystery built around why they're traveling to Jackson, and make it seem like some of them don't even want to go through with it, maybe after experiencing some losses on the way. It would have made the scene a lot more impactful.
We made it.
Holy shit. It's a fucking city.
Yeah, when everyone else sees this, they're gonna want to turn back.
We can convince him.
And made Abby's motivation more clear and the reveal of her backstory more fulfilling. Now intertwine this early story arc with one of Ellie and Joel. Make it that Ellie doesn't know what happened at the Firefly Hospital, and have it be apparent that she is actively aware Joel is lying to her. So as this mysterious group is approaching to Jackson, as we're getting to know them, we have this tension between Ellie and Joel building from the very start of the game. Have more scenes with them together, and make it so you could be able to play as both of them. People already really like these missions that they had together, so add to that and give them missions to play as together. Cool scenarios like this scene with the bloater is what people want, so give them that. Make the eventual death of Joel have more weight when just a few hours ago he was alive and well, clearing out infected with Ellie. Once the group from Seattle arrives near Jackson, instead of just sending Abby out on her own, have scenes where you play as Abby with other members of the group. Have them ambush scouts from Jackson, leaving Firefly markings on walls or trees nearby people that they had killed. Give the player the instant realization of who they are and why they're down there. Instantly, it gives the player a sense of confliction when just before we were starting to get to like these guys. Then have the final stretch of the introduction, have Ellie and Joel come across these murder scenes that they've made. Understandably, Ellie is like, Joel, what the fuck is this? Anyway, the scene pretty much plays out the same as the second game, and Ellie runs off. Joel understandably is like, hey Ellie, don't do that because it's fucking stupid, there's dangerous people out here, as Joel runs off to try and find her. He gets captured, and then this scene plays out pretty much the same way. Golf and all. So instead of Ellie getting high with Dina and Joel getting killed, this plays out instead where there's a lot more impact on his death because now Ellie feels directly responsible for what happened. Say what you want about Ellie getting high or not, but it had no impact on his death, because they would have stayed inside anyway due to the blizzard. But subsequently, this puts more impact on everyone's death later on in the game, because the weight of this scene has increased by tenfold. Nora, Owen, Mel, Jesse, Manny, all these characters die brutally because of the brutal things that they've done or brutal things that have happened to them. Except you, Jesse, I love you. All spanning from this one scene. To me personally, this would have been more impactful to the entire story, because we actually got to know these characters before we knew what they were going to do. That would have made so much more sense to the story. Imagine in one of the earlier scenes we have a heartfelt scene with, say for example, Nora. She becomes the player's favourite out of that whole group. Then you see this again.
Yeah, that little bitch got what he deserved.
Oh. Nora's actually a horrible person. That's a shame, I really liked her. See what I mean? More fleshed out characteristics have more impact on emotion.